Welcome back, guys. I'm going to do a quick video for you today just comparing Canon and Sony and just telling you really my experiences and why I think Sony has the edge at the moment over Canon. Okay, so the first thing I really like about the Sony is just the fact that you can pull out the screen like that. And when you're doing reportage photography, documentary style photography, it's good sometimes not to have a barrier between you and your subject or whoever you're photographing, which can increase the level of anxiety or whatever. Some people just don't like it. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? When you have a camera like that between you and the person, it's kind of imposing. But if you've got the camera down here, you have the screen out like that, I can look at the image and then I can still make eye contact with the person. So that's one really useful feature. I know some DSLRs might have that as well, but the latest A7R2 and 3 both have the tiltable screen on them. The other thing I really like about the Sony is it's got a digital viewfinder. You're constantly looking at a digital image when you look at the screen. Either when you look at the screen on the back, or if you look through the eyepiece, the image is still digital. And the reason this is good is because in, say, low light conditions, when you're shooting on a street or something late at night, or in a club, you can't always see exactly what's going on in your shot, especially if it's very, very low light. And what you can set up the Sony to do is actually sort of brighten the image when you push the shutter button down. So it's like an image intensifier. It sort of brightens the image and shows you what is there. And what you can achieve if you were to brighten it later in Photoshop or something like that. Also, the fact that you're just constantly looking at live view image, whether it's the viewfinder or the back of the screen, it's constantly live view. So you can plug the camera in and connect it to a monitor, and it will be exactly the same image that you're going to take on the camera, which is being shown on the monitor. There are a few drawbacks to the Sony. The first being that the autofocus was very bad, especially when I first got it and I was using it with Canon lenses with a Metabones adapter. Not saying the Metabones adapter is bad, just as a disclaimer, there are other brands as well, but I think they're all equally bad. Basically, it just means you can use other lenses, Canon lenses, Nikon lenses, I guess, if there's an adapter. But the autofocus will just hunt in and out and take ages to achieve focus, even in pretty good lighting conditions. So since I've been actually using the Sony native lenses, that's pretty much got rid of that problem. The autofocus is quite good. I wouldn't say quite as good as the Canon, but it's still pretty good if you're using native lenses. So the only downside of that, of course, is that you need to buy new lenses, and that's expensive. But I would say it's worth it if you want to use the Sony and get the most out of it. The other point to mention is that the way you pick the autofocus on the Sony is a little bit awkward. You press a button and then you basically move a cursor by using the scroll wheel on the back, or the directional buttons on the scroll wheel on the back of the camera. So you have to kind of scroll the autofocus point to where you want it, which can take some time because it's a bit sluggish. On the latest Canons, like on the Canon 5D Mark IV, for example, all you do is press the touch screen and you pick the autofocus point really quickly, and then you can shoot. So that's better in reportage situations. So the way that you pick the autofocus on the Canon, I would say, is at the moment better. However, I haven't used the Sony A7R3 yet, which I think does address that issue, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so the next thing to mention on the Sony is the in-body image stabilization, which means that I can shoot at slower shutter speeds and reduce the blur that I'm getting on my image. This is incredibly useful for events, etc., where I want to keep my shutter speed low and use handheld shooting. And that means I can go to, say, 160th instead of a 200 or 250th, and I can keep nice pin sharp images. So overall, at the moment, for the reasons I've mentioned, plus the fact that it's just a smaller and lighter camera, I'm going to go with Sony's at the moment. I think they've got the edge over Canon for the features that I mentioned, the fact that it's got the live view all the time, it intensifies the image, and just the fact that it's very customizable as well. All the menus, you can set up the buttons however you want them, and you can actually program the camera. So I really like that, and I'm going to be investing. I think I'm going to get the A7R III before long, and I'll invest in some more Sony lenses because, as I say, you really do need the native lenses to get the most with the autofocus. So I hope that's been of interest to you guys. If you have any other things which I've forgotten on this video you want to add below, just put them in the comments, and I'd love to see them. So that's all for today, and I'll catch you next time on my next video. So keep watching, and I'll catch you guys soon.